Welcome to Pioneers in Payments, where payments experts share their insights. Now, here's our host, Donna Blum.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Pioneers in Payments. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Steve Wasserman from Vments. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're looking forward to just gleaning some advice from you from all of your years of experience in the payments industry. But to get us started, would you mind sharing a little bit with our audience about who you are, your background in the payments industry, and the work that you do at Vments?
So Vments was originally positioned to be a product company, but the product is really kind of ahead of its time. And I pivoted the company a few years ago to do what I've always done my whole career, which is consulting and providing expertise in related to payments, as well as to corporates that I've worked with in the ERP industry even before the acronym existed. So I've been doing that for a long time. And so, through that, I've been working with various stakeholders in the payments industry, and through organizations such as the U.S. Faster Payments Council, and there's all different types of organizations in that, from banks and credit unions and corporate credit unions and bankers banks and all the big banks and the networks, all together to collaborate on the adoption and awareness of faster payments, as well as other related topics to how different technologies related to like QR codes and so forth. So involved in that, but also involved quite a bit in the Business Payments Coalition, which is an organization that was kind of spun up and supported by the Fed Improvements part of the Federal Reserve. And they help facilitate an industry collaboration for business payments. I'll talk a little bit more about that in our discussion too. Also involved in one of the things about faster payments in the U.S. to use ISO 2022. So I became an expert in that and participated in the anti-standard X9 organization for ISO 202 Market Practice Forum. And also the FedNow community. So all these different industry collaborations have been where I've been sharing, learning, and networking for new consulting opportunities. But as I said, I have decades of ERP experience. I've been involved in business-to-business payments, consumer payments, and I had two different startups over my career. One was in consulting, and actually a consulting business we started and sold in the late 90s. Another was a startup started in the early 90s, and we did walk-in bill payment. For those of you who are not familiar with it, that's where you can pay bills in cash or top up accounts, which back in the 90s were top up the minutes on your phones. But then it turned into, in the 2000s and such, when we had real-time APIs, and we were topping up prepaid cards and debit cards. And today we can call that push to card. And so we were doing that over 20 years ago, and real-time topping up accounts that you could then use to do pay things at point of sale, whatever the cards were enabled to do, pay bills, etc. So that was a great experience. And through Vments, though, Vments is something I designed back in 2017. And today you can call what it was designed for is a bank-issued stablecoin. And it involved not only the currency, that's a digital currency, which did not involve cryptocurrency. I felt that if banks were going to do it, they didn't want to deal with cryptocurrency as something that they could issue, or ideally the central bank would be the one to issue it, and the network of banks would be the wholesale level that then could distribute it out to the retail level. So it could follow a dual purpose or a separated use of the same technology for both wholesale and retail digital currencies. But you need more than the digital currencies. You need smart transactions that they run through. So the data, like the data models like ISO 202 would be good to use within it. But smart transactions are also information that can be retained and used as like shared payables and receivables between businesses. And you also need these digital accounts. They should be smart. They should have capabilities like purchasing cards do in corporations that may be able to limit what they're spent for or have different levels of approval. And why not make that available for all types of accounts and have the accounts in terms of walk-in payments and such the accounts may or may not have a bank account associated to it. Like my PayPal account doesn't have a bank account, it doesn't have to have a bank account, it's optional, or I can tie it to multiple different accounts. So I took all those types of things into account and came up with a comprehensive ecosystem design called Vments. But what I've been doing in my consulting is trying to share aspects of what might be applicable to what client opportunities and needs there may be.
Well, it's so relevant today. In fact, you and I met at the Faster Payments Council fall member meeting, and lots of conversation about digital currencies and cryptocurrency, stablecoin, all of that. So you're in the kind of in the sweet spot. um, well, and you have such a wealth of information. These things that we're talking about today weren't even on the radar 20 years ago, right? So lots has changed over the last several years, especially. So, well, so I like to start off by asking about just kind of your perception of the industry and what you see as the most notable trends today in the industry.
Well, the ones that I'm favorable trends of is faster payments. That's why I'm involved in the U.S. Faster Payments Council. And I believe instant real-time payments are really going to take off. They're starting to accelerate. Just like any other new thing, it starts out slow and starts to build, but there's a demand for instant payments. We've come to expect having everything paid instantly. Those of us who use things like PayPal and Venmo. But then you look international and you see that real-time payments, the U.S. is still behind. So we've got catching up to do, but it's projected that we're going to, surpass what other countries have done, and the widespread adoption should hopefully accelerate and take off. And instant payments are not only the one type of faster payment, but push to card, where the receiver of the card holder can have funds sent to them through the same card networks that you do your credit card transactions. But think about a refund. Well, that's kind of putting funds back in the card, puts the money back into, if it's a debit card, puts it right back into your bank account. So push to card is leveraging those card networks. And then, of course, there's same day ACH, which has increased the capabilities of using what we've been using for decades for ACH. But being able to do it on the same business day, and there's multiple windows. One recently added in the last couple of years. Behind all the instant payments and also adoption in other types of payments is ISO 2022. And even wires are going to be starting to use that. There's a schedule of when that adoption is starting to happen. Even Swift is adopting that as well. So the adoption of 2022 has a lot of characteristics about how rich data it has, the capabilities you can enable, the communications, and it's not just making the payment. You have requests for payment. That is going to be really, I think that's the killer app. And then you have other payment message related things, such as why I might have rejected something, or I have an inquiry about a transaction that was sent to me as a request. So there could be the message set really incorporates communications that otherwise would have gone through non-secure emails and other manual, more intensive discussions back and forth that could be electronified and automated in systems a lot better.
That's great. Yeah, there's a lot of talk too about ISO 20022, and a lot of institutions with legacy applications don't have that capability today. So, but it's certainly, the more I read about where the industry is heading, that data is so important, right? And data analytics and AI and all of that. So, finding ways to be able to modernize and access the data is going to be so important. So let's move on to the next question. What would you say is the biggest opportunity for organizations that process payments today?
Well, I think a great use case opportunity is improvements to bill payment, and especially bill payment automation. For business to business, which I think is can have the largest return on investment when using businesses implementing faster payments and requests for payments. And request for payments can extend beyond not just the request for payment that's involved in the ISO 202 real-time payment rails, but also through the BPC, business payments can be done through an e-invoice. And e-invoices here will be new in the US, but they're not new internationally. They have been used outside of the US, in Europe and other parts of the world. Organizations such as Open Peppal has been using e-invoicing for many years. And the US through the BPC is leveraging that and not reinventing it, but improving upon it and taking it beyond just e-invoices. We also have planned to also be able to interact remittance detail for business transactions, which that's a real pain point that many businesses face. And there's a huge opportunity, I think, to address that. And there'll be businesses that'll be hungry for it. Already have been. It's a solution that's been needing something better for decades.
Yeah, so really, the industry's moving towards providing more value-added services, right? What do consumers and business clients need, and developing services to meet those needs. So that is definitely one example of that. So let's move to the other side of the coin. We just talked about the largest opportunity. What would you say are the greatest challenges that organizations that process payments today are facing?
Well, number one barrier to adoption is widespread interoperability. So these payment rails that I discussed, even the FedNow instant payment rails and the clearinghouse instant payment rails, there's a lot of similarities between them. You can kind of make them interchangeable, but they're not interoperable with each other like ACH had been. So that's a challenge that eventually, hopefully, will be addressed. And some organizations that are working on both networks are easily able to address it because they support both. And that's been the answer to that solution. But, I'd like to have interoperability across real-time payments with perhaps other payments that, maybe one side of it is real time, but the other side may be something that I can use existing methods to either send or receive. And, so that would also help with adoption if it's easier to bring on. But then that just creates a little baby step toward then taking the next step of now making it full real time for everything. And beside that, the other big barrier to a big challenge is everybody's kind of resistant to change. Banks are very conservative. Even many businesses are very conservative, or their business is not payments. Corporations in general, they focus their effort and their money and time on what they do best. Well, paying the bills is not something that is a focus for them, but it's got to be made easy for them. And when they realize that it can be made easy, and they can learn from having to be easy from products that they've been using personally to now say, hey, why can't I do this for my business as well? That's where things will start to change, and they'll realize that, okay, we should do this. And then, of course, you have legacy systems that are things that are the chains around sometimes being able to change things, and it's hard to introduce new things into it. So those legacy systems, there are approaches that can be used to kind of re-architect things in a way that you can do it in a transitional manner. It's hard to just, what do they call it? Just Band-Aid, rip the Band-Aid off and do it all at once. So we'll have to wait and see, what happens with faster payments adoption and also, business automation of transactions. And we have to see if their attitudes turns from, fear, whether they can see that they're missing out and that they're not being left behind. And that pertains not only to the corporates, but also to, the banks. The fintechs are in some cases eating their lunch, and in the other case, the banks are still there and they're strongholds. But the best is a marriage of the two.
Right. I agree entirely. Well, so this is my favorite question. The whole purpose of this video podcast is to really distill some advice for payments professionals, help them to navigate this rapidly changing payments landscape. And so the next question is about what one silver bullet piece of advice would you give to payments professionals or organizations that process payments?
Well, I'm going to say this one briefly. Don't wait. Act now. Start with a roadmap and a plan for banking and payments into the future.
Very good. Don't wait. Yes, start making progress in that direction. That's very good. So, Steve, we talked about several different things today. If our audience wanted to learn more about the things that we discussed here, where can they go for more information?
Well, we'll share resource links with you through communication of this recording. But Vments has a website, www.vments.com. But the other ones I referenced is the fasterpaymentscouncil.org, the businesspaymentscoalition.org, and then through the Federal Reserve, all the things that they got going on can be umbrella for that is fedpaymentsimprovement.org.
Very good. All right. And I'll be sure to include those links in the description of the video on YouTube. So check that out. But Steve, I just want to thank you so much for your time today and your words of wisdom for our audience. And I also just want to thank everybody for watching. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for sharing.